Hi, my name is Paul, and I'd like to take the opportunity to explain or try to describe what motivated me to take a particular photograph and what I like about it. I realize it's kind of self-indulgent to talk about why we like our own work, but the reason I want to try this is because I've never, really tried to articulate all the things that were kind of going through my mind when I was trying to take the picture, and I thought that this might be helpful for other people in terms of uh, improving their compositional capabilities. And also, I think that the part of the brain that does the mathematical calculations of an image composition is not connected to verbality. The reason I say that, I know it sounds kind of, fancy talk, but the reason I say that is because when I'm composing an image, I get to a point where things look right and then I take the picture. But when I think about it later, to try and put into words the reasoning, it's a struggle. I'm aware that it comes from a different part of the brain. It's like I have to go back and kind of invent the words because it wasn't through a verbal discussion with myself that I arrived at a composition ever. It's never like that. It's always this nonverbal sort of communication. I can't even describe what that is because there are really no words for it. But anyways, so here's the picture, and let me scroll down for those of you that are interested in the data of the exposure and all that kind of stuff. There it is. It's f2.8 at a 20th second 80 ISO, taken on February 6th, yesterday. And let's magnify it so you can see it a little bit better. I really like this picture, and that's why I'm focusing upon this one for this discussion. And the reason I like it, the reason I'm so thrilled by this picture, to be honest, is that it's exactly what I was trying to say when I took the picture. And again, I was trying to say something, but there really aren't words for what I was trying to say. So it's kind of a weird sort of it's a weird space where there are no words, but I'm going to try to put words to it. Uh, Initially, what drew me to this image, and I'm going to use the screen cursor here to point out things, but I really I like the zigzagging these branches here, and I kind of make those sounds in my head when I'm composing or when I'm considering a scene. They're kind of like brush strokes. That's what initially drew me to the scene, but rarely when I'm taking these types of pictures do I know what the composition is going to be until I start looking through a viewfinder and within the confines of the frame edge that I start to kind of figure out, well, what components are going to work together to create an interrelationship between all the different parts of the image. And like I said, my impulse can lead me to situations that are interesting, but then that intellectual part, the geometrical calculation of positive and negative space, getting the ratio, also known as a Fibonacci sequence, getting that ratio correct between light and dark so that the image looks balanced. And I want to take a moment to talk about this little piece over here on the right. Initially, I didn't see it when this is a walking path right here, by the way. I was on a hike in a regional park out in Coquitlam, British Columbia, Canada. called Minikada Regional Park, I think it's called. And the sun was going down. It was, in fact, you know what? I think that it might be in the data what time this picture was taken. It's one of the great things about digital photography is you can, oh, there it is. It was taken at 16:55:02, so 5 minutes to 5. And I can tell you at this northern latitude of about 49 odd degrees north on February 6th, you know, the sun is where it is in this picture. It's quite low and it's getting dark. You can see by the ground here that the sun is either setting or has already set. Anyway, getting back to what I was saying, and I hope I'm not boring you here. Please forgive me. This is the first time that I'm trying to articulate these types of thoughts about a photograph. So, as I was saying, I didn't notice this little thing over here. To me, it kind of looks like one of those Easter Island head sculptures carved out of stone. I mean, it's a very skinny, you know, wooden version out of a rotten wood stump. But that kind of was the thought that I had in my mind when I saw it. Now, as I mentioned before, I didn't even notice it. All I noticed were sort of the larger brush strokes here. That's, you know, those were the big things that I noticed. I didn't notice this finer point until I brought the camera up and started looking through the viewfinder. And as I was moving the camera left and right to figure out how to balance and compose this scene, that sort of popped into view. If you imagine, you know, if, the frame edge being where I'm moving the screen cursor up and down, I move that frame edge over and to the right, and then boom, this showed up, and I thought, ooh, that's quite nice. And what I did was I stepped a little closer in order to create some separation between this background here and the top of this tree stump here. I didn't want a subject merger there, so I created a little bit of space, and I made sure that there was kind of an equidistance of space between the subject and the frame edge, and the subject and this tree branch on the left. So there's a nice sort of, not quite, but you know, you can see that there's a deliberate attempt there to create a kind of a equal padding there. So it's a minor player in the image, but the contrast is really striking. You know, this very black outline or figure against this very white background is very interesting for me, very eye-catchy. And so I had to take that into consideration in the overall composition. So basically, what I was thinking about, and this is the part that's hard for me, is putting into words what it is that I was thinking when I took the picture. So basically, what I was trying to do was balance the picture left to right, you know, this side of the picture compared to this side of the picture, and also top to bottom, making it all balance. For me, balance is really the secret to composition because it gives me the criteria upon which to decide, make decisions on what should go where, how much should be in, how much should be out of the picture, that type of thing. And so the first thing I started to do was move the camera left and right to figure out how much on the left is going to balance how much on the right. So if you think of this picture, if we were to split it down the middle right here, imagine a line right there, then the left part of the picture balances the right part of the picture, because if you think of it starting from here on the left, you've got this tree trunk here quite dark, and then you've got this object down here on the ground which looks like a rock, and then these large tree trunks here and a smaller one there, and these things, and of course these things in the background also. This is quite dark. Now if you take into consideration the brightness weight illusion, The American, you can look it up online, the American Psychological Association conducted experiments where darker objects appeared heavier. And so, given that as true, the way that this picture balances is on the left we have small dark objects, this tree trunk, this dark bunch of trees over here, and all of these things, these dark balanced over here by larger, brighter areas. We've got these smaller tree trunks on the right, 1, 2, 3. This is probably in fact, it is the brightest area in the composition. And this bunch of trees, not the foreground trees, but the background trees, is brighter than these background trees. And of course, the brighter sky here and so forth. So these small dark things here all balance out this larger, brighter area and this bright pathway here. And that's basically the fundamentals of how this image was composed. And the way that I do, or do composition, the way that I compose images is, well, there are a couple of ways, but in this particular scenario, because nothing is moving, you know, there are no people involved, that type of thing, I let my impulse guide me to where I'm going to start working on composition. Then I bring the camera up to use as a framing device, and using this sort of improvisational method, I move the camera back and forth while analyzing all of the elements to see which components are all going to work together in the frame. And that's how I took this picture. And I think the reason I'm making this video is because this picture came out exactly as I'd hoped it would. Everything is exactly the way I hoped it would be. Now, if we look at it top to bottom, I didn't really put a lot of attention into the top of the frame here. I just tried to sort of eyeball how much of this sort of brush is gonna be right, and also I didn't want to have too large of a gap of basically overexposed area here. And pardon me, this darkens down when I move my mouse cursor. That's just a function of the Flickr.com software. If I stop moving, then it brightened there. You see that? It brightened up, and when I move my cursor, it darkens down again. I don't know why it does that, but it does it. So I was trying to make sure that I didn't have too much of the bright here to be distracting. But basically, that's how I balance this. So, you know, again, small dark down here versus the body of water in the sky is the large bright area. So this image balances left to right and also top to bottom using that Fibonacci sequence, or you know, mathematically speaking, it's 1 to 1.6. And no, I don't. This is all just eyeballed and guessed and just done sort of estimation through experience and done sort of very roughly. I don't use any sort of true mathematical measuring. I would hate to do that. It'd be so boring and time consuming. It's just, you know, you do it enough until you kind of feel like you've got a feel for it, and then you kind of eyeball it when you're taking pictures. That's how I do this. The Fibonacci sequence thing is more just sort of an after the fact observation, you know, sort of breaking down technically how the picture is constructed. And oh, I should also mention that this picture is manipulated somewhat from the raw image. I'm going to bring up the raw image now. So this is the camera file. This is the original camera file. And I used HDR because I recognize there's a very high contrast scene. You know, you've got overexposed here and then underexposed here. So I did HDR, In fact, let's go back. So this is without HDR. This is the actual camera original file. So you can see that it's massively overexposed here and up there and massively underexposed here and here. So I went HDR because it composites three exposures, an underexposed, overexposed, and normal exposure. It sandwiches three shots into one to give you that. So I knew that because it's a high contrast scene that HDR was going to be necessary. And I don't usually use HDR because I prefer to take pictures of people that are, in action. And when you're taking three photographs and compositing them together with people moving around, then you get ghosting and stuff like that. But with something like this, because nothing's moving, it was okay. But anyway, so this is the original composite shot. And then let me just go back and forth here a couple times so you can just see the difference. And I'm sorry that they don't register exactly. This one's a little bit higher than this one. But you can see the highlights didn't really change, but the shadows did change. See the floor of the forest here? That's really what I was trying to brighten up, because in the original composite image, the floor of the forest is really too dark to see any detail. But, I knew that because it's underexposed, that there would be some more meat on the bone there, that there would be some information that I could reveal. In digital photography, it's always better to have underexposure because there's going to be information there that you can reveal through brightening techniques. But if you overexpose something in digital photography, it's like getting too much hair cut off in a haircut. You're not going to be able to put it back on. So I basically exposed for the highlights and then printed for the shadows. It's the exact opposite of the old days. So there's the finished product. And this is exactly what I conceived in my mind of the shot. And as I mentioned, I really love the, if I may call them brush strokes, the zigzags here are quite beautiful. I really like this very delicate relief of the black twigs. Let me zoom in on that. I'm just using my fingers here. And it's very this picture was taken on an iPhone 4, just to let you know. So it's 1936 by 1936 pixels, so it's very low resolution. So as I do that, you can see that the image is breaking apart. But anyway, you get the idea. It's quite lovely. This relief of these delicate branches. Let me zoom back out so you can see it as it should be seen. Here it's sharp. But basically, this cluster of branches on the left was designed to counterbalance this one unified, very dark, strong relief against very bright. So these two things were supposed to balance each other out. I really loved this rock here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit on that. It's a lovely rock with all kinds of, I guess, scraping from the Ice Age. I'm guessing that's why there are these straight lines, or relatively straight lines from, ice moving back and forth across it. And as I already mentioned before, these dark objects on the left balancing the bright areas here on the right, due to the fact that we've got three small trees on the right and then basically two large clusters, although it's more than two trees, but basically three clusters on the left. I also really admired, when I came upon the scene, the reflections, of course, of the trees in the water. And also, you can see along here, there's something on the surface of the water that's creating kind of a texture. And I also really like that. Let me try zoom in a little bit on that, so if you can see that. Again, it gets blurry because it's such a low resolution image, but you can see here what I'm talking about, all of these shapes that form on the surface of the water. There's sort of a line here for some reason. It might be an outflow of a stream or something like that that's pushing whatever is growing on the surface there out of the way. And this little thing here, but I love these. Keep saying it over and over again, but I love these little brush strokes here. And let's zoom. Oop, sorry about that. Zoom. Uh-oh. What's happening? Oh, there we go. So there's the original. And as I said, I hate repeating myself, but I guess I don't know how to tie this off. But in conclusion, I can't think of any other way to tie it off but to repeat myself. I love this picture, and I've looked at it since yesterday a handful of times, actually. I don't usually look at pictures. Usually I look at a picture once, maybe twice, and I might come back to it at some point in the future. But this one I've looked at a number of times just because it's so perfect. The composition is perfect. There's nothing that I would change about it. I look at this and I think it's perfect. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing that was a surprise or wasn't quite what I wanted. It's everything right to the edge of the frame, millimeter by millimeter, is exactly what I was hoping for in terms of the brightness and tonality. I love the interplay between the light reflecting off the surface of the water and these little delicate branches in this, as I mentioned, over on the right, and everything. I love this over here and this curved pathway that's got reflected light on it and everything. Just the whole thing just works out perfectly. And I don't know if it's considered in poor taste to, gush over your own work, but and I usually don't talk about these things. I usually just keep all these thoughts to myself, but today, for some reason, I decided, you know what, let's just put it out there. Whatever people think, if they think it's in poor taste, I apologize. And if you got something out of it, that's really what I was hoping for, is that, to get these things out of my mind and into a video. I was going to say on paper, but into a video, then other people, and years ago, before I figured out balance as really the secret or the key to good composition, I certainly would have been grateful to come across information like this. So, I think that's really the real reason why I made this video, is that so for people who don't yet completely understand or know about the importance of balancing when composing an image, that's really why I made this video. Because frankly, without an understanding of balance, what you're really risking when you're taking a photograph is just ending up with a mere mechanical recording of the scene that interested you. To really, in my opinion, transform your visual experience successfully into a good photograph, you need to incorporate this sequence, the Fibonacci sequence, that 1.6 ratio, in order to create a satisfying experience. And lots of artists, it's not a new thing, any Monet that you look at, or Matisse and so forth, all the great painters were aware of it and used it. Henri Cartier-Bresson, there's even in a documentary, he even says the number 1.6. So it's not just by accident. He was doing it deliberately. Anyways, thanks a lot for watching.